Right. So what is that we have discussed in the previous session about uh, the Medicare part followed by the Medicaid. That's what we have discussed in the previous session. So whereas today we are discussing about the HIPAA part, right? So Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. As I mentioned you, of course, I'll be sharing screen in some time. Okay. So as I mentioned you, Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act is what we were discussing in today's session. Normally, before getting into that, one must be knowing about what are the different rules are there in HIPAA, right? So that is what the first thing which we want to learn first. As far as the HIPAA itself is concerned, as you know, so there are few important specifications we must be knowing in reference to the rules of HIPAA, where the first one is that privacy about the health information of individuals is what comes under the privacy rules, like in reference to the rules, because these are the rules which has to be followed by both primary healthcare physicians, healthcare team, as well as the insurance organizations. Everybody has to follow these rules for sure. When it comes to the rules of HIPAA, the major rules of HIPAA majorly lies on privacy part, the first one. Like we have to follow the privacy, whatever the health information of the individuals has to be protected here. This is what generally the first point wherein we have to see in reference to the rules itself is concerned. Second, whatever the transactions, we call it as EDI. EDI stands for electronic data records, all that stuff. So EDI transactions, whatever the data and all everything will be in an electronic format. EDI transactions, we call it as electronic data interchanges. So EDI transactions and all everything will have some code numbers. That's what we call it as EDI transaction code numbers. So there will be some code numbers for EDI, so wherein we follow the same. Third point, national identifier the requirements for employee providers, followed by the kind of health plans what usually we provide. At the same time, the kind of security rules in reference to the one which covering by the healthcare providers. At the same time, whatever the health plans and insurance organizations are providing. At the same time, healthcare clearing houses, followed by the kind of Medicare related prescription of drugs, all that stuff. So these are the major rules which normally HIPAA follow, and HIPAA followed by this, even a healthcare provider or an insurance organization has to follow the same. So these are the different rules which HIPAA has to follow. One is about the privacy part. So privacy of health information, which must be protected by both the parties. Next, whatever the transactions we do, we call it as EDI, stands for electronic data interchanges. Right? So EDI transactions. Those EDI transactions will have different set of rules, which has to be followed by the team as well. At the same time, as I mentioned you, identifying the requirements for employees, for the providers, followed by the health insurance plans, that also will be protected, followed by some kind of security rules, which has to be followed by HIPAA. So these are the different rules which HIPAA follows. Being a business analyst, we must be knowing about these rules well in advance. At the same time, when we talk about the requirements of HIPAA compliance, when we talk about HIPAA compliance rules, all that. So this is what generally a HIPAA compliance checklist is all about, where here we need to understand and as well as adhere the physical followed by administrative and technical safeguards to protect the health information as well as health records of an individuals, which is what we call it as PHI, protected health information. So this is what we call it as PHI stands for. So please note down these terminologies which are useful while you are working as a business analyst or you are attending somewhere. These terminologies are useful to you. So protecting health information of the individuals is essentially required. Now, when it comes to the compliance checklist, as I told you, the first one is technical protection. Technical protection majorly focuses on encryption and as well as authentication of the health information. This is what the technical protection was, compliance checklist I'm talking about. So when it comes to technical protection and all, encryption and authentication of health information of the individuals, that is the first point. At the same time, not only encryption and as well as authentication, the control followed by the log process as well as the changes to protected health information is also the second one, which I was mentioned here on the second one, where there will be limited access to the people who are using the systems, because this is not allowed for to access for everyone, whoever wants to use it. So there will be some controls as well as log access will be given with a limited with the limited access. Right? That will not be given for everyone, right? So that is what we call it as log access. That is another important point under the technical protection. At the same time, when it comes to the physical protection, under the compliances, where we control as well as the monitor the physical access of the systems which are not allowed under HIPAA, because whoever has given the access to whom we have given and whoever has the control over this will be used this, and controlling and monitoring the physical access will be given for the limited members who are really working on it, not for everyone else here. At the same time, managing the workstations of the systems which are used between the healthcare provider as well as the insurance organizations, those will also be protected, because workstations at the location, either in the healthcare physician side. Please close your turn off your camera, please. Please turn off your camera. Please turn off your camera, please. So managing workstations is also comes under the physical protection. Means workstations means whatever the systems they were using while performing the activity, either sending medical records to the insurance company or else vice versa from an insurance organization. So the managing workstations and all, everything comes under this category. At the same time, third point, protecting and tracking the devices relating to the health information of the individuals. So that also will get protected physically. So technical protection majorly focuses on encryption and authentication of the data, whereas in reference to the physical protection, control and monitoring the physical access, followed by managing the workstations, protecting and tracking the health information through the devices is also comes under the physical protection part. There is another protection which called as administrative protection. In this administrative protection, where we need to assess and manage the risk which is involved to manage the systems, right? So because administrative activity is a back-end operations activity which has to be taken by the people, but of course we need to train them for sure. So how to operate and how to manage, use it, all this training has to be imparted to those people. Hence, assessing and managing risk is something essentially important under the administrative activities. Followed by this, we need to train the staff as well. Because how to use the systems, under what conditions, we need to provide access to the people, all that stuff. So that sort of guidelines will be provided under the administrative protection. At the same time, block the unauthorized access. If any people trying to access to the systems will also be comes under the administrative protection. At the same time, document security incidents where whatever the documentation we prepare, whatever the document we normally prepare for the health information of the individuals, that also will be protected under the administrative protection. So T3 protections you see under this HIPAA compliance. One is technical protection. Technical related protection will be comes under HIPAA. Second, physical protection of managing the workstations, etc. Administrative protection, majorly focusing on managing the risk, training the staff, all that stuff. Now, when it comes to HIPAA privacy rules to follow by any of the people who are working on healthcare, environment. So there is a to-do rule process which is there. In this, where we need to respond to the patient access request. That is the first thing which we normally do. Responding to the patient access request is what the first point. The second point, training the staff, as I mentioned you. Right? Of course, it's an administrative activity. It's a to-do activity wherein we follow here as well. At the same time, we need to update the forms and as well as the copies, which will be on the transactions code. Through a transaction code, this will be used on regular intervals. At the same time, we need to respond to the patient access request if it is really needed. So here the again terms and conditions will be taken into account. So here access will be granted for everyone unless until if it is really important and if you feel that so this is necessary to access the request and all that. So that response to the patient access request will be comes under the HIPAA privacy rules. Next part is that breach notification. Means the first is privacy and how to protect. The second one is that HIPAA breach notification. So wherein this whole breach notification, where we need to notify the patients about how to manage the systems and how these systems will work. In order to breach the systems, rules and regulations and all, what are the precautions to be taken into account? So all these aspects comes under the breach notification part. At the same time, HIPAA omnibus rules, where we need to update the policies from time to time, because policies, procedures, whatever we prepare may not be continued all the time, right? So this is a continuous activity where we have to update in regular intervals, right? So we have to follow and we have to update regular intervals, like we have to update the privacy policies. We have to update all the policies, what is that we have taken. At the same time, whatever the copies are we sending to the people, at the same time, whatever that are we training staff, right? So how we are going to update the privacy policies, like at the same time, how to train the staff in order to use these applications. All these things comes under the HIPAA omnibus rules to do. So these are the compliance checklist which normally we follow in reference to the HIPAA part. So majorly focuses on, as I mentioned you, majorly focusing on technical protections. Second point will be of physical protection. Third is administrative activities. Third point is administrative activities. Technical protection is the first one. Second, physical, followed by administrative activities, as well as the protection. At the same time, rules to do, what is that we need to follow in order to control, in order to maintain the privacy. At the same time, breach notification. That's the reason why there will be a separate systems which will separate workstations. I mean to say, systems means like separate workstations will be there, which has to be followed on regular intervals. The notifications will be taking into those notification details will be provided for the people who are majorly works. So on what basis and how are we providing training to the people to use the applications is essentially important. So those are the things which we have to be focused more of. So these are the checklist which, being a team who are working on healthcare, it's not only about the business analyst, I'm saying. Of course, people who are working on healthcare, especially this claim processing environment, or else healthcare related data environment, whoever is following has to follow the same, right? So it is all something relating with those people, right? So this HIPAA confidence checklist, all these things will be taken care of under this. So being a business analyst, as in when we are learning, so we were focusing more on that grounds. That's what generally I wants to say, right? So that is what generally we see under the HIPAA confidence checklist, all that stuff. Now, when we talk about the main directives of HIPAA, usually this main directives of HIPAA will be of 5 different titles, which must be known here as well. The first title focuses more on the kind of reforms we were need to perform in insurance. At the same time, those reforms through this HIPAA by introducing the rules about the accessibility, followed by the portability and as well as renewability of health insurance, because these reforms, rules, and regulations, whatever we prepare, will be changed from time to time. Of course, protection of health information as well as the records are the primary aspects under HIPAA, but whatever the reforms as well as the rules which normally we follow, the standard rules remains constant, as I mentioned you. So those are constant, but in terms of the accessibility itself is concerned sometimes, as well as the renewability of health insurances and all everything will have some slight changes from one to another. It will not be the same for uh, every time, right? So because depends on the situation to situation, right? So the kind of medical uh, transformation of the things happens in the regular intervals. That is what how generally this changes has to be made into this. This is the first point. Whereas when it comes to the second one, HIPAA title concentrate more majorly on the mandatory steps of the rules in reference to the privacy or security. Third point, the HIPAA title 3 introduces new tax rules from time to time, which are relating to healthcare treatment. Followed by this, what are the deductions we have in reference to the medical insurance? What are the provisions we have? All that stuff. So these rules you can understand in terms of the healthcare treatment. Even you can consider this as an example that the present situation of the COVID, which was suffered in last 2 years by the people across the world. So the healthcare treatment in reference to the COVID part and all, everything was not there, right? So because that sort of thing was not there, right? So remaining things were treated by the uh, healthcare providers time to time. But this was a new thing which was happened all of a sudden, where most of the people were suffered. So even that treatment will also be included under the health claims, all that. So these are the different rules in reference to the healthcare treatment. Depends on the time to time, situation to situation. There will be some amendments happens from time to time, which normally happens under the title 3. At the same time, when it comes to the HIPAA title 4, which includes the additional details of the reform of the new insurance laws in protection to the conditions, whatever the pre-existing conditions we have, followed by the individuals who wants to maintain their insurances. So all these things comes under title 4. Whereas when it comes to title 5, which provide us the guidelines for the insurance policies, which is owned by the people, businesses people, and how uh, to handle that income tax specifies within the territory of the citizenship of the US and all that stuff. So this is all comes under the fifth part. So these are the 5 main directives of HIPAA, which we need to understand. So the first point is about the focus on insurance reforms by introducing about the accessibility, portability, renewability of health insurance, uh, which will have some changes when it requires from time to time, is what we do. Second, about the HIPAA title to concentrate majorly on the mandatory steps, followed by the privacy rules, security rules, followed by enforcement rules and all that. So enforcement rules means how you are implementing, how you are enforcing it to make it implemented, right? So that's what we call it as enforcement rules. how you are enforcing it to implement these rules, right? So that's what we call it as enforcement rules, because this is all comes under the implementation perspective. Privacy and security were the general perspectives, whereas enforcement rule is implementation perspective. That's what we have to see. Title 3 focuses on the new tax rules which are relating to healthcare treatment, right? Whatever the updations to be made into the healthcare treatments, all this stuff will also be included in this. Fourth one includes the details of the reforms of the new insurance laws, majorly focusing on the pre-existing conditions of the individuals, all these. At the same time, 5 majorly focuses on the guidelines of the insurance policies, which is owned by the businesses, and how this handling of income tax specifies and all everything, which is majorly belongs to the territory of the people who belongs to the US citizenship, all that, right? So these are the major 5 directives. Being a BA, being a HIPAA, knowing, because person who is knowing about the HIPAA rules and regulations must be knowing about these 5 main directives of HIPAA is for sure. So these checklist which we have to be followed, right? So these are the checklist which we have to follow. Now, when it comes to the requirements for HIPAA compliance, because whatever we have discussed in the previous session about the HIPAA compliance checklist, we have discussed, followed by these directives and as well as the rules we have discussed. Finally, not last but not least but not important, one is about when it comes to the compliance requirements, means what requirements for HIPAA compliance we have to consider. So this is the one which is required for a BA, especially for a person who is involving into business analysis role, business analyst role. It's not, of course, not majorly required for other roles due to their responsibilities. What is that there, and that is not something relevant to them. But whereas when it comes to the relevancy of the role of a business analyst, the requirements for performing HIPAA compliance, which being a business analyst, what is that we need to understand, are considered and divided into 6 different areas. The first one is that performing self-audits within the organization, followed by the self-audits, followed by this, like external auditing will also be done, as the same we follow in company audits, right? So because company auditing will also be done in the same manner, right? So if self-audits will be done by the auditors, followed by this external auditing will also be done by the external people, wherein they have to provide a report on the auditing, all that stuff, right? So the same way, performing self-audits on the HIPAA conferences and all everything. So that itself is the first point we need to know about under the requirements for HIPAA conference I'm talking about, right? For the self-audits by the people who are the internal auditors, right? Self-audits majorly for with internal auditors that will be done. That is one thing, one requirement, which comes under the HIPAA conference part. Second one is that documentation part. So whatever the required documentation in reference to the implementation, so that also prepared under the documentation. So these documentations are not something needed for everything. See, this documentation might be required for different reasons. See, documentation may not be the same for all the people. So this documentation will also be changed from time to time. The requirements we were updating, right? So that status of the requirements, all these things will be updated from time to time in the documentation part here. Then at the same time, business association management, how you are associating people in this existing lines of the services of healthcare, right? So how you are associating the people and how, what are the guidelines to make people to associate within the existing business, to make them associate, the first point. So once they have associated, what is that they have to follow? What are the uh, rules and regulations which they have to follow? At the same time, how to manage these business associations and move this to the next level. This is all comes under the business associate management. At the same time, incident management, right? So when there is an incident, means a situation come across, how you are going to manage, right? So what resolution or what approach are we following in order to manage these incidents and all, everything comes under incident management. Because in IT, if you see, there are some incident management tools like OpsGenie, all these things. If you remember, when I discussed about the agile environment in the previous sessions, if you know. So there are some tools which normally we use. As I said, something like Jira will be used for project management, as I mentioned you. At the same time, even I have discussed with you about what we called not only Jira. So we have discussed even with about so the Confluence part, right? For document management. At the same time, for release management, there are some tools like Bamboo, all that. So in the agile way of approach, I'm talking about in reference to the IT, right? So at the same time, there is a tool called OpsGenie, 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 which is a tool used for instant management throughout uh, throughout the process. This is all comes under the instant management part. So requirements for HIPAA Confluence followed by instant management will also becomes under this fourth category. At the same time, having an remediation plan in the place, which is essentially required when it is needed. So that even taken into requirements here. Followed by this, developing and implementing policies and procedures, followed by the training. So for that, you need to prepare the detailed requirements document, as I told you. See, in a form of documentation, we prepare, right? How to develop the systems and what are the policies we have, right? What procedures do we require to follow in order to follow these procedures? So how to provide employee training to the people, right? So how to manage that? So how are we following to implement these policies and procedures? All these things comes under the HIPAA Confluence part. So these are all comes under the development and as well as implementing the policies and procedures, especially. So that detailed documentation has to be prepared. At the same time, what kind of training and what type of training to be provided to the people who are involving on HIPAA confluences and all. So all these things. So these are the major requirements which majorly used to implement the HIPAA confluence part in healthcare. So one is about performing self audits from time to time by the internal auditors. Second, business associate management, how you are managing the association of the business people who are involved in the process. The next, incident management, how you are managing your incidents, all that. Next, having a remediation plan in place, followed by this documentation. What are the documentation we have prepared? So why and in what reason, in what way the documentation has prepared. So we have to prepare the documentation, that is essentially important. At the same time, developing and implementing policies and procedures, followed by the employee training. All these things comes under the requirements of HIPAA Confluence is all about. This is what the whole information about the HIPAA part, which being a business analyst, one must be good with. Means what HIPAA laws were, right? So what are different laws of HIPAA? As I mentioned you, when it comes to the technical protection, what is that they do? When it comes to the physical protection, followed by administrative protection and all that. What are the elements to be taken into an account? Because there are people who maintains all these HIPAA compliances, all that stuff, right? So not by the business analyst team itself as separate. We don't follow, but the required documents from time to time based upon the amendments happens on the policies, procedures and all, everything will be guided by the business analyst. So why are we learning this? Majorly relates to that, right? So because from time to time, whatever the changes are we doing in the documentation is what we have to do it from time to time. So this is what generally the checklist which normally we have to follow in reference to that. So now there is a question here. Excuse me, let me answer this first. Right. So the compliance requirements is sent for companies to have this. Is that correct? To insurance companies that yes. So the compliance requirements and all everything is sent for the companies because they have to follow this. Because whatever the health information of the individuals and all everything will be there at the insurance company location, because all the health information will be there at the company insurance organization location, because receivers are the insurance organization people. So in reference to the compliance and all, compliance requirements and all everything is relating to them, in reference to them, because they are the one who has to protect, because the records maintenance will be there at their end. So which are the insurance, because especially in reference to the government level insurances and all everything, you don't see any difference, any problem in it, because they have their own guidelines to follow. But it comes to the private insurance companies, there are possibilities. I don't say that they don't follow, but there are possibilities that private insurance companies might have some minor deviations, which should not happen. That's the reason why this compliance requirements and all everything majorly focus towards the receivers, like insurance organizations, all that. So we will be focusing more mainly to them. It is not majorly focused on these people. So that is what we must be knowing in reference to the compliance requirements, all that stuff. So this is what we need to know about HIPAA. So this is what the complete understanding, being a business analyst, you must be having. So again, I'm repeating. One is, let me repeat you. So one is about the requirements of for HIPAA compliance is what you need to learn. Know first point. Second, what are all comes under the HIPAA compliance checklist? So that should be known to you. Second, what are the 5 main directives of HIPAA, which normally we follow, followed by what are the rules are there under HIPAA, means what are the protection rules which will protect HIPAA, right? So for what reason HIPAA has been introduced and for what reason, what purpose? So the purpose of HIPAA should be known first. So what are the rules of HIPAA and all everything are these. So this is what the whole information about Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. Being a business analyst, you must be good with. Right. So self-audit means this is a question asked by Saurabh Shrestha, right? So could you expand on self-audit? Is there any standard of audit procedure? See, self-audit means, for example, audit usually offer two different things, because let me explain you audit from a basic understanding. Normally, of course, you guys were working professionals. I don't need to give you a spoon feeding, but let me explain you in this context so that it is more easy. See, auditing purpose will be for two different things. Audit is for a financial audit. Second is a procedural audit. So financial audit means financial position. Financial position, what are the receivables, expenses, right? Income, expenses, right? All these things, flow of the cash flow, from where we have got this, right? So outflow of the cash, right? So all these. So this is all comes under the financial audit. This is point number one. Second audit, procedural audit. Procedural audit means whatever the rules and regulations we have framed for a business to perform. Forget about HIPAA, forget about something, everything, right? So forget about this for some time. So whatever the procedures, standards, policies, and all everything we follow. So that is on the records, right? On the documents. But is that the same way we are following while we are performing our transactions from time to time? Is it that we follow? Do we have that procedure? For example, the best example like CMM level company, ISO, CMM level, Six Sigma. How you are going to say this? On what basis are you saying? Is that just because of the records? Because it is because of the implementation what they do at their organizations, right from employee onboarding to, so when they are allocating the task or when they are terminating a person or whatever it is, there are some standards which they have to follow, right? So if you're talking about CMM level organization, so there are some set of procedures to manage their organization well in each and every level, right? So that is what generally it is. So when it comes to the self auditing and all everything, there are internal auditors where there are some standard set of procedures which has to be followed by these people, and they have to make sure, because HIPAA rules and regulations were framed, but how far are these were implementing in the organizations at the organization level? So someone has to keep an eye on it. That is all comes under self audit. That's what generally we do. Right, so procedural audit I'm talking about, not the financial one. Procedural audit will be done by the internal auditing team. So for that, there are some set of standard procedures which normally we follow in order to maintain that. So that is what generally self audit stands for. Yeah, so it's an in-house auditor team which will be done according to HIPAA, followed by external auditors, because third party auditors means external party. So external auditors comes next. Internal auditing team has to be done first. So there is a difference. That's what I have said in the beginning. Self audits will be done by the internal team first, right? So followed by this third party auditors from the external team will be done later. So two different things, right? So self audits usually in reference to performing self audits and all everything, internal team, internal I'm talking about first. Second, it applies to what we call it applies to the external auditing later on, because if there is any corrections which you have seen, so those will be identified here. That's what it comes under this. So this is all about the third party auditors, all that. This is all about this. Right, so this is all about right, so this is all about the HIPAA part, so which I have covered. And tomorrow I'm going to discuss about, of course, tomorrow I'm going to discuss about the codes, right? So what are the different codes do we have and all everything that I'm going to discuss tomorrow, like the life cycle of a claim is what I'm going to start tomorrow. So hopefully before going for a claim processing and all, so after claim processing, I'll explain about the codes, not the before. First claim processing life cycle will be explained to you. So followed by this, what are the different codes we use for what purposes? So what 835 stands for, as last week I have told you, right? So these are the common procedure codes, CPT codes. There are different codes like, so CPT codes are there, right? So there are different code levels of codes we have, but major codes, what is that we see is about the transaction level codes of HIPAA relating to the claims or remittances status, all that. So these and what process we follow to uh, request either for the claim request or for the remittances or for the status and all that. So these points are we going to discuss in tomorrow. So tomorrow onwards, I'll be focusing more on the claim processing part of healthcare. Followed by this, what are the different codes we follow, especially in reference to the procedure. Procedure means medical procedure we are talking about. Means, for example, an uh, healthcare organization is providing a treatment for the patient and all. What are the procedures they have followed? For each and every procedure, there is a code. So the code will be reflected on the health record. So when they are sending it to the insurance organizations, this is all relating to procedure part. Next, revenue code. Revenue code means you know about financials, receivables. Next, diagnosis code. For every diagnosis of something, so there is a code which is applied for that. So these are the three different codes you have. Procedure codes are separate. Revenue codes will be there, followed by diagnosis codes. Of course, we have many, as I mentioned you, but there are few uh, important code numbers which you need to know. At the same time, claim related stuff, right? So claim related, what are the codes we follow, right? So 835, all that stuff. So that those are all will also be there. So these code details and all everything will be explained. So before that, I must be explaining about the claim process life cycle. So then these codes and how these codes, the process will be implemented. So that will be explained in the next level. That's how our training will be going. Hopefully by this weekend, it will be completed by, this is, of course, today's Monday morning for July. So yours is Monday evening, right? So Monday evening. Right. So by this weekend, right? I try to complete by this weekend maximum. If it completes prior, it's fine. But by this weekend, I'll try to complete. So that is what I can assure you. Before this weekend, if happens, fine. But let's see, because there were few topics which I supposed to cover. So let's see how it goes. It's because I don't want to be in hurry. Either take one day time, let me complete as fullest. Okay, this is what it is. Right. So next point, can we get the presentation document used for business analyst training since we moved on the industry specific? Yeah, this initially, if I am not wrong, the screenshots in reference to my training and all was pasted in the Word document and I have shared with you. The same document where I will be posting my presentations there, whichever is needed, and I'll be sharing it to you guys so that you can go through that. Right, so that I'll do it. And this is for the question from Saurabh Shrestha. Next, do we refer to HHS guidelines for HIPAA? Is there for government website that we can use to search any information? Yeah, there are information which it is available about HIPAA in government websites, because they normally follow, because they have their own Medicare, Medicaid policies. They'll have the information, but this information will also be changed from time to time. It will not be the same all the time. Of course, it will not changes frequently. It changes at times, not on regular times, all that stuff. So the guidelines for HIPAA, all these things will be there on the this government websites where we can see, but need to have some time, invest some time to do it, because it will not be appeared with immediate effect, right? So there will be some documentation will be there, right? You have to go through the documentation where you will be knowing about the guidelines, how to implement HIPAA, right? So standards, all these things you will be seeing there. Okay. This is all about. So HIPAA compliance, it's for health information, right? So normally HIPAA compliance majorly used for healthcare services because the name itself is that Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. Right. So HIPAA conference majorly we use this for healthcare services, majorly. The name itself drives for this because health information of an individuals are to be protected. That is the agenda point we have to be focused more on, right? So that's what we were aiming for. So this is all about HIPAA compliance for healthcare services, all that stuff. Next. Any questions apart I'd like to ask on this? So tomorrow we just start about, we discuss more about the claim processing followed by claim life cycle, all that stuff tomorrow. So hopefully I'll try my level best to complete by this Friday. So I'll try my best to complete because there were few more sessions like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 5 sessions. So we have 5 sessions. Let me complete by, as I already mentioned, so by Friday, I'll be completing your sessions. Okay, so whatever the information relating to this, as I told you, that I'll be posting on the Word document, which I have prepared for you as a session notes. I'll be posting required information in that and I'll share it to you guys so that you can go through and you can prepare. So practical part, we have already discussed, Dina, because BA codes, practical part is what the requirements documents, what are the use case diagrams, all these were prepared. So those are all practicals. That's not only just UML. If you remember, business requirements documents, all these were also part of practice, right? So business requirements document, that's also a practical part, right? So that also we do. So Jira, yes, that's what I'm covering. Yeah. Yeah, Jira I'll cover the how you need to understand the requirements. I'll show you on Jira, right? I have a tool that I'm going to cover at last. I'll be showing there. So of course, that's part of practice that, but that's not only the thing. We are not going mostly on theory, Mr. Saru Maharjan, because business analyst is a case related role, right? So business analyst is the course. If you remember from the beginning, I say business analyst is not a coder, right? He is not a coding person or a tester. So where he uses different technical tools to perform. Business analyst is the person who acts as a liaison between business and technical communities. So wherein how you're understanding the situation, how you're responding, how you're preparing the documents, what are the different templates we follow. That is what I have covered all this time. If you remember, please go through my old recordings. You will be knowing well. And to be fact, yes, there will be theory because there are some knowledge areas. Knowledge areas should be explained in a form of theory only. So there is no other way. Okay, understood, I think. But whatever the documents I have shown you, whatever the case study, don't you think that is all practical part, right? So unless until if I am not giving this case studies, could you understand, right? The same reason why I have taken the case study. So the business objectives and all have explained on the same manner. Even when I'm talking about business requirements, functional and non-functional requirements, at the same time UML, and what is that are we going to discuss about the Jira part? Maybe day after tomorrow, once the procedure codes all these explained, as I'm showing on Jira, that is also part of practicals. So practicals will not be there share as separate as a tool. It's because we are not doing any coding. If there is anything, something like coding or testing courses and all, yes, you will be having a complete practical. There you don't see any theory there, because that is nothing to do with coding. Coding is nothing to do with theory, right? So you have to write the code and you have to show. But whereas for the BA, it is not that. Business analyst, how you are understanding the requirements, that was the major point. And how you are documenting it, how you are capturing it, how you are integrating it. So for that, first of all, there is a procedure has to be followed. What is the procedure? That procedure you are not following on your own, right? So there are some procedures. What are those? Those are nothing but the knowledge areas. So those knowledge areas is what we have discussed. And when it comes to the practical part is an integral part of it. What is practical being a BA? You do translating. What is that you understood? You have to translate. In what form are you translating it? You are translating in a form of business requirements document, all that. That is a part of practicals when it comes to be business analyst role. At the same time, you need to visualize the requirements. How do you visualize it? There are some tools we use. What are those tools? UML diagrams that I have shown you. That is practical. In reference to the agile, so there is Jira tool which normally we uses. That comes in practicals, of course. That's the reason why I told you that it will be taken till this weekend to complete, right? I have taken 5 more days are there for us to complete. So that is also comes under practicals. So practicals theory goes hand in hand. For example, if I am not explaining anything about uh, diagrams or something like, I'm just, for example, if I'm not explaining any documents theory, and can I show you directly on Jira board, or can I explain UML diagram? Can you understand it? Right? No. So there is a theory which is involved, that is in form of knowledge areas we have to cover. That is what we did all these days. So diagrams, UML diagrams we use. Jira, it is exclusive used in agile environment. Being a business analyst, you need to write down epics. You have to write user stories. So the same case study, whatever the case study I have taken in reference to cloud-based or some other application I'll take, I'll write down epics and user stories to that. That's what I do. Understand? Clear? Sorry. So Jira part will be covered from day after tomorrow. Next 2 days, Jira will be covered for you. So that practical part is there, is the balance. After this healthcare topic, the next was Jira. Because agile is completely agile, right? So that I'll be discussing there. Clear? Any questions? Any questions to everyone? Any questions? "15th and 16th and today's." Did I write something on the Word document? I haven't written anything, right? If I have written anything, I'll be giving that notes to you. If I don't write anything, then there is nothing to give. Let me see the word session notes, right? So is there anything is there? I'll be sharing it today because I have not explained anything on session notes, so that you don't get anything. At times it will be prepared. The session notes will be prepared at times when it is required. Yeah, this is what the last one, right? So traditional user story, how to write, right? So I think, so this is what I have written on the session notes. I haven't written anything so far. So this I will be sharing. Normally I'm sharing in WhatsApp, actually. This documents, session notes I'm sharing on the document, on the WhatsApp chat itself. I think right from the beginning, I'm doing the same thing. If there is anything I have written here, for sure I'll be sharing. Of course, we haven't written anything as session notes quite a lot because ours is a different thing. So that hence I have not shared, because in the beginning also I have told you So if there is anything, if I have written on the session notes, I'll be sharing that day. If there is nothing, we don't share. Simple. Next question. That is what we are covering, Thapa. That's what the reason why we are taking till this weekend. Otherwise, it have been completed by tomorrow or today. The healthcare topics I would have completed. So JIRA is what the balance which has to be covered as separate. I cannot cover in between. Right. So first of all, BA has to be covered, which I was covered. Second, healthcare topics, which I am covering now. After that, we'll get into JIRA. I'll be showing this is how JIRA project looks like. Let me show you. This is how the JIRA projects looks like. So being a business analyst turned product owner, you need to write down here. See, real project means in reference to the question you are asking, there is no real project, real documentations I'm talking about. So my business requirements documents cannot be shared with you because it's a privacy matters again, right? We work for organizations, and whatever the documents we have, the documents belongs to the organization, so that I cannot share my original templates because all the business information will be there in the documents, which I cannot share with you, right? So because if I shared and if I used by someone else, then it will be a problem for me, right? So I cannot share. Real world, see, there is a real world documentation. Don't call it as project because you're not completing the whole project. If you're talking about project, then coding, testing, everything comes into picture. You're not doing it right. So being a business analyst, documents, BRD is all that. I hope you understood what I'm saying. So this is how generally the projects will be. Of course, I'm just based on your curiousness, I'm just showing you. So this is how generally the JIRA software and project looks like. So this is how generally epics and all everything will be connected with. So these are the epics we prepare. Followed by epics, these are the user stories which you have to write. Because how to write this user story, if you remember, here I have shown you. I have shown you how to write user story in the document itself. In the previous sessions, I have shown this to you. Yeah, you can see here. So there is a procedure, as I told you, to write a user story, which I have shown you, followed by acceptance criteria, right? The same thing we do it on JIRA. The same thing we do it on JIRA. Right, so here, right? So here we have to write down the user story. Followed by this, here you have to write the acceptance criteria. So being a product owner, business analyst turned product owner, you need to create a roadmap. You need to write epics. You have to write user stories. Once you have written all the user stories, all this there in the backlog. From this backlog, sprint planning and all everything will be done by the team members. And followed by this report generations and all everything will be done by the Scrum Master later on. So this is how generally the JIRA board looks like, and these are the JIRA projects looks like. So being a business analyst, what is that you do is you have to create the roadmap by creating epics followed by user stories. That is the reason why, if you remember, since beginning, I have trained you on a case study. If you remember it, right? So I have taken a case study and whatever the explanation I have given on the case study itself. From the beginning itself, if you remember, the same thing I have followed. The same thing I follow even when I am doing this case study also, so that you will be understood much better. So this is what we are discussing from. Hopefully tomorrow, if I complete the codes and all, day after tomorrow means Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. 4 sessions, 3 sessions or 4 sessions, whichever it is. So that will be covered completely on JIRA. So because I cannot stop in between. If I start, I have to complete. So that's the reason why I kept this at last. Okay, that's the point. Next question. I think you got in clarity, right? So in reference to the practical part, in reference to Jira. Next, can we? So, yeah, so you can contact through Manik. Mr. Manik is available. So if you have any questions, you can contact through Manik regarding this. Yes, you can. No problem. Yeah. So yes. I will revise what is that I have covered so far and all. I'll revise it. That I'll do it on the last day, not the before. So what is that I covered and all everything that I will revise it to you. So what we have covered so far, what you have learned so far, that I'll be covering in one session, complete, right? What we have covered right from the beginning, that I'll tell you. I'll do it. Okay, guys. Tomorrow we are discussing, as I mentioned you, about the codes and all. From Wednesday onwards, we'll start Jira. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 3 days. On Jira, I'll be showing it to you. Saturday will be the revision session. If it is completed in 2 days, Jira part, remaining 2 days will be the revision session. Either that or this. That's how the whole process is. Clear? Okay then. See you guys. We'll meet tomorrow. Bye. Thank you.